Hello friends, Tal here, and welcome to another Legion video. Today we're going to be talking about the 7.0.3 launch tuning hotfixes that Celestalon posted about. These are essentially the Legion pre-patch hotfixes, things that people should know about as the pre-patch comes out, about changes that they've made to the game. So, things to keep in mind. Not all of this will take into account during the pre-patch. As you can see, the very first line is Tank's artifacts now passively increase damage done by up to 20%, was 40% based on artifact trait points spent. That doesn't matter until Legion actually releases. So this isn't necessarily something you got to know before the pre-patch, but it is something that you have to know because it's going to affect all the tanks. Obviously, slashing their increased damage from the passive on the tank artifacts in half is a big deal, but it's not the only change that has happened. If you look at the other tank classes, so I believe that up to RIP is all Guardian Druid stuff. So work with me for a moment. If I get something wrong, I apologize. I'm not, I haven't been playing a Guardian Druid main at any point. I might be playing it in Legion, but I still got to get used to all the different words for it. I'm not sure what the power of the Arc Druid is, but it has a spell alert, so, great. But Vicious Bites now increases mangle damage by 7, 14, 21%, which is an obvious buff from the 5, 10, 15%. Jagged Claws now increases thrash damage by 10, 20, 30, was 4, 8, 12. So already you have Thrash and Mangle, two of your biggest abilities for Guardian Druid, buffed. Jagged Claws especially being a huge buff to the amount of damage Thrash does. Maul damage was reduced by 40%. Now, I don't know if this is just me, but Maul, I felt like I don't even use that spell. Honestly, it's supposed to be a rage dump, but it has a cooldown, so it just makes it really awkward to use to dump any rage. I'd almost rather just put up more iron furs. So I'm not really sure why they're reducing the damage of Maul more there, but I mean, Swipe and Moonfire for Guardian Druid the damage has been increased by 20%, which is great. I actually made a mistake in my pre-patch video for the Guardian Druid. Moonfire, you want to keep the dot up, but Swipe still does more damage anyways, so you don't actually use Moonfire as your single target button. I don't know if that's intentional or not. They need to do a little bit more changes there on the numbers, but both of them were buffed, so they pretty much remain the same. Mangle damage has been increased by 10%, and then Pulverized damage has been increased by 50%. So overall, damage boost to the Guardian Druid, which I think was actually the lowest of the DPS ones. I think now it's Vengeance Demon Hunter has the lowest single target DPS. But obviously, besides the Maul debuff, everything else is just a flat out buff to their damage. I believe that the rest of this is talking about the other. Most of this I think, is actually a Pharaoh Druid, but I'm going to move past this, and I hope to God that I haven't missed anything. So then, Spirit Bomb, damage increased by 100%. This is Demon Hunter now. Fellblade, damage reduced by 45% for Vengeance. Okay, well, that sucks. Fell Eruption, damage reduced by 65% for Vengeance. Also sucks, but in this particular case, the other two talents had no competition with it whatsoever. At least now it has more of a competing slot, but I mean, still kind of is unfortunate that it's lowered. And then Burning Alive, damage reduced by 50%. This is also a talent. So, the thing to keep in mind with all this, Spirit Bomb having the damage increase is nice because it wasn't competing. But the problem with the reductions to Fellblade, Fell Eruption, and Burning Alive, it's not just a damage nerf. Fellblade is fire damage. Fell Eruption is fire damage. Burning Alive is fire damage. Fire damage, when you get the artifact traits, gives you some self-healing. That's the whole thing about Vengeance. A lot of synergy that combined with the fire damage that they deal on like half of their abilities, giving them some health. So it's not just a single target damage nerf or just a damage nerf overall. It's a survivability nerf as well to a tank spec that already doesn't need more survivability nerfs. They're cool, they're fun, they're fast, all that kind of stuff, but they take more damage than the other tanks, and they're pretty squishy. This isn't helping their case, and it saddens me because I want them to be competitive. I want to play a Demon Hunter, but I can't justify it if they keep doing this kind of stuff. So definitely something to keep in mind. The buff to Spirit Bomb is nice, especially because now it's going to be giving you extra healing by 10% of all the damage that you deal instead of 5%. But it does seem like maybe they need to relax a little bit on the nerfs to the Demon Hunter, because there's, while still playable, as far as a competitive PvE type thing, it's looking less likely like you're going to want to be a Demon Hunter if you're pushing anything. So then you go into Paladin. Blessed Hammer damage reduced by 25%. Okay. Prop Paladins have been doing massive amounts of damage. Grand Crusaders now learned at level 28 instead of 50. Okay, just comes faster when you're going to be leveling. Protection, level 15 and 30 talent rows have been swapped places. Okay, again, just a nice little leveling boost. And then Fervent Martyr now reduces slightly the martyr cost by 50%. That's a Holy Paladin thing, so you don't have to worry about that. Overall, not big of a deal to Paladins. Paladins have a lot of damage that they're doing right now, so even with these changes, not that much of a change. The thing is, you have to go into Seraphim to do a lot of damage as Paladin, which is a good trade-off because you don't want to use Seraphim when you're actively tanking, especially in Legion proper. You know, it's a big survivability cost with 2 charges of Shield of Righteous. So I kind of like that because it's a trade-off. It's more interesting. Death Knights, though, it needs to be said, Death Knights have been doing monster amounts of DPS on the beta realms right now, mostly because of Blood Boil. But they have some changes, it looks like, but it probably doesn't seem like it's enough. So we have Bloodworm damage increased by 263%. So that's a huge buff to Bloodworms. The problem is Bloodworms is just a bad talent. It's kind of a trap. You would think that they'd be good, but they're not. They're just bad. When their healing was reduced so much, even having them do more damage, it's really doesn't matter. It just flat out doesn't matter. Bone Storm, damage reduced by 8%, but fix a bug where it couldn't critically strike. I also don't think Bone Storm is a good talent either. In some situations, it could be good, but the problem is it takes so much of your runic power, and the amount of healing, it's really not that much. I feel like that's almost another trap of a talent that you have there. Mind you, Blood DKs have good talents, but some of these are obviously less than the other ones. Let me read here. I want to make sure that I'm talking specifically about... Okay, so all this is about blood, so we can keep going here then. Festering and Sweeping Claws was about Unholy. So when you have Rapid Decomposition now increases runic power generation by 15% instead of 20. So a little bit of nerf there. That's unfortunate because, again, one of my issues with the Blood Decay is runic power regeneration. I'm not even going to try to say that word. Now increases Blood Plague damage by 4, 8, 12%. So it's going to be a nerf to the trait. All-Consuming Rot now increases death and decay damage by 4, 8, 12%. A little bit of a nerf again to the artifact trait. Vine Render now increases Heartstrike damage by 3, 6, 9 was 4, 8, 12. Sanguinary Affinity now increases physical damage by 5%, was 8%. Heartstrike, Deathstrike, Blood Boil for blood, Death and Decay for blood consumption, and Blood Drinker damage increased by 15%. So, while there are nerfs, there's also buffs, and I think it actually evened them out. So that's not that big of a change to Blood Death Knights. They're still going to be doing monster amounts of DPS. So, keep that in mind. Then you have Warrior. Now again, let me just go through this really quick. I want to make sure I'm talking specifically about protection. This all looks like Fury, Raging Berserker, Wrath and Fury. Shield Slam, Devastate, Thunderclap, Revenge, Deep Wounds damage increased by 5%. And Rage of the Fallen now increases revenge damage by 6, 12, 18 instead of 4, 8, 12. So protection got some DPS buffs. As you can see, it definitely looks like Demon Hunter, Vengeance Demon Hunter has fallen by the wayside as far as single target damage goes. Again, damage is not the most important thing, especially not in the beginning of an expansion. You got to stay alive. But it is important to note that these changes are going to be affecting your solo play, your leveling, how much damage your raid does at the end of the day. And it's important to keep in mind all these changes and the way that they balance out and what kind of effects they have on the other classes. You can see a lot of these were just damage changes, but specifically in the case of the Vengeance Demon Hunter, because of how they have been built from the ground up to synergize, it's not just a damage nerf, it's a survivability nerf. You could take Warriors, you could take Shield Slam, you could take Revenge, you could take Devastate, and reduce their damage by half, right? That doesn't mean that the Warrior is now going to take more damage or survive less. But if you reduce a bunch of the fire damage abilities that Vengeance Demon Hunters have, that's an outright nerf to the survivability because they heal off fire damage. And it's important for them. It's part of their kit. Just stuff to keep in mind, guys. But anyways, that's a quick little overview here of the pre-patch launch tuning hotfixes. Just something to keep in mind. It's important to know how all these things affect each other, how they interplay, the synergy behind them. And I hope you guys liked the video. I appreciate all of you. If you did like it, drop it a like. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more. And I hope you all have a fantastic day. I'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.